You're tuned into Oman's national English radio station. Abdullah Maawali here. Joining me today are the Tamami brothers, Mohammed Al-Tamami and Saleh Al-Tamami, co-founders of Mamun, an Omani fintech company that provides innovative financial solutions to SMEs, including crowdfunding, which will primarily be the focus of today's interview. Welcome to the studio, guys.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
I'm glad to finally interview you, Saleh. I interviewed Mohammed a couple of times, and I'm happy to have you back.
We're glad to be here. It's always nice to be at the studio. Everyone's so friendly. You know?
I'm almost certain this is going to be entertaining.
I hope so. It has to be.
So let's start with the basics. Can you tell us about Mamun and what inspired you to start this company?
Prior to joining or launching Mamun, Mohammed and I worked as contractors in Ooredoo, where we managed a fintech product. And it was lending to Ooredoo subscribers. And that's how we met Ahmed Isai. We managed this for 3.5 years at Ooredoo. And one of our biggest takeaways was meeting Ahmed. And for 3.5 years, we've been whispering to his ear, like, leave, join the dark side, and start something ourselves. Until finally, we got that call from him. He's like, all right, let's do something.
Okay.
So this was 2021. Early 2021.
Early 2020, really, sort of when we all kind of like went to market with Mamun's core technology.
Okay.
But we spent a lot of 2019 kind of like designing it. So I think when Ahmed kind of switched to the dark side was like early 2019, late 2018.
Yeah. So we've been co-conspirators ever since. And the premise was, it's very hard to get financing, whether you're a person or a business. Our primary focus was businesses and SMEs. So our premise was, let's build this technology that makes it easier for anyone to launch fintech or lending type of products and solutions. So our users could be banks, could be telecom companies, could be large enterprises. And one of the things we were tackling was this concept that in 2020, 2021 was just starting to come out called embedded finance. What embedded finance is, you have, let's take a food delivery company, right? They have restaurants that sell through this food delivery company. This food delivery company has a lot of data and cash of these restaurants on a daily basis. How much are they selling? What are they selling, etc. And the premise is that food delivery company is in the best position to offer loans to these restaurants.
Right.
Because they have the data and they have the cash. But the food delivery company can't do it by itself. It's not a bank. It's not licensed, nor does it have money to lend. So Mamun comes in between a financial institution, a traditional lender, a bank, a finance company, connects to it. And on the other side connects to, say, a food delivery company, so that we can streamline and sell more loans to the restaurants in that food delivery company.
And Saleh simplifies it a little bit, but the fact that the Mamun layer is there allows us to do risk at scale, aggregates the nature of these credit products that are supposed to be very useful and in some cases highly needed by the businesses. A business can have an emergency such as their espresso machine breaking down. That would create a shortfall in cash on that month, and that they would need to, for example, finance its purchase. Or maybe a business wants to buy more, in certain inventory, so they could sell more because it's Eid season and there is more demand.
Right.
And this is where, often businesses need intervention from a finance perspective to help fuel growth.
Okay, so let's move on to crowdfunding. I'm very excited about that. Walk me through the process.
We have to set you up,
Yeah, but I want to get to the good stuff, Why I want to get to the good stuff? Because I know it's relevant to me. Honestly, if anything, this interview happened because I signed up to Mamun. I'm yet to invest. And I thought, hey, I have a platform here. I could actually get the founders to come in and ask all the questions that I wanted to ask. to make sure that my investments, I know where it's going, I know that it's safe, and hopefully that's what the audience are going to get from this interview. Perfect. So walk me through the process of how this crowdfunding works exactly.
Great. So crowdfunding in general is a very, relatively oldish concept. 5-10 years now, 15 years around the world. And this is what it is. The crowd come and fund or finance businesses, right? So 3 of us are in the room. You would invest 50 riyals, 50 riyals, 50 riyals. That's 150 riyals. That is funding a business. Either you are buying shares in this business or you are giving it as a loan to this business. We specialize in short-term loans to businesses in a Sharia-compliant Islamic finance way. So this is generally what crowdfunding is.
Right.
And, it's inherent in the word crowd. We have to understand that sometimes a lot of investments are simply inaccessible by individuals with smaller tickets, be it 50 riyals or up to even 500 or 1,000 riyals.
Yeah.
With crowdfunding, it gives more people access to participate in investment and economic opportunities, irrespective of the size of their wallet. Yeah. So this is very important to mention.
That's what I think is very appealing about your proposition here. What kind of businesses, projects does Mamun finance?
So, any business, any industry, short answer. Trade-based businesses, FMCG, project-based businesses, services-based businesses. There's so many types. And all businesses face the inherent problem of needing financing at one point or the other.
Right.
So a business might be in the scheme of importing, let's say a container of chocolates or coffee, and then selling that coffee to different coffee shops. So we would finance the purchasing of that coffee container so that they could sell. A business could be in the facilities management industry, where it has contracts with different other companies and it provides cleaning and facilities management services. They might need to buy a new floor polishing machine, or they want to expand and buy a new van, for example, to help their operations.
Right.
Other businesses might have a solid contract that they've just won, that they have a tender, and they need to mobilize. They need to set up, they need to buy things, they need to fund things.
Yeah.
So we would finance those as well.
We'll definitely come back later on to speak about, in more detail, about the businesses side of Mamun. I've been following you guys for the last couple of years, and mashallah, it's been one milestone after the other. So I would love to just give you the opportunity to talk about some of these milestones that Mamun has had, things that you're particularly proud of in the last, even this year, mashallah, already there was a lot of stuff that happened.
Over the last 8 months,
Yeah.
we've, I think, surpassed over 3,000 registered investors.
Okay.
We've financed, over 500,000 Omani riyals.
Yeah.
Over just this year or over the past year?
Over the
past
last 7 months.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Right? Across different sectors and verticals. So that's like just over 20 businesses. We've already made some handsome returns to investors. And I think one of the milestones is, for the first time, and I've been an entrepreneur for a decent time in Oman. For the first time, we're changing their narrative. Who would have thought that SMEs are excellent investments? Because the narrative tends to be a bit different.
They're risky, no? Isn't that the narrative?
Sure.
Yeah.
But risk is relative. Risk is measurable. And I understand if you're using your own money as an institution, as a financial institution, you have, the equation's a bit different because you have depositors and you're using depositors' funds to lend out to businesses. So I think the criteria on how you do that is much higher. Whereas for us, it's slightly different because it's an investment wealth product. We grade the risk. We do all kinds of due diligence on businesses.
So I have a whole section here on risk, so we'll definitely come to that with a lot more detail.
Right.
Inshallah.
So it's a slightly different, lens when it is an investment. And ultimately, the investor makes this decision.
Yeah.
Our role as a platform is to inform the investor as much as possible about the business, and obviously take the responsibility of performing very strict due diligence and risk measurement.
Speaking of the investor, why should an investor consider investing with Mamun as opposed to, I don't know, putting their money elsewhere, the stock market?
Let me run this by you as a question to reach the answer. So you mentioned the stock market. So when you're referring to the stock market, you're referring to which stock market exactly?
The U.S., right? Oftentimes that's the case. Emerging markets is now a very attractive proposition.
What other investment instruments do you think are available in Oman today, other than the local stock exchange and perhaps the real estate sector, right?
Sure.
Now, the thing with the nature of our instruments in Mamun, because they involve buying and selling of goods, right, which are ongoing economic activity, the rate of return can be significantly more handsome. Rate of return relative to time. So there are some investments and opportunities that we list on Mamun that give you, for example, a 10% return in 4 months. So that would be what, Saleh, in an annualized rate?
25%.
25%. You know, Apple stock can give you 25 to 30% annualized.
Now, 25% annualized is very attractive.
Absolutely.
And look, I mean, it's not like it's not being done at a larger scale already, right? When a bank finances a business for 3-4 months, the annualized rate turns out to be just that, 20-25+%. The key difference here is the benefit of that lending operation goes to the shareholders of the bank or the depositors when they get savings and fixed deposit returns. With us, it's directly shifted to the crowd, those who actually invested. And then, you know, private credit or, you know, loans as an investment tool or as an investment product is commonplace. It's been happening for 100+ years. It's just done at a very big scale. And, you know, your average guy can't get into those kind of opportunities.
Right. You're giving us access to that.
To that kind of investment class that's already there with as low as 50 riyals.
Call it microcredit.
Is it always 25% annualized?
No, it isn't.
Okay.
Obviously,
so there's a range?
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, we try for every investment to reach a consensus between what the business can reasonably afford and what the investor reasonably accepts or expects, especially in relation to the risk of the investment.
Well, who is eligible to invest through Mamun?
You have to be 18 years old. You can be from anywhere around the world, you know, with a small asterisk, certain countries, of course.
Okay.
You know, you just sign up, put on your...
Those are the only requirements.
That's it. 18 years old.
Can institutions also take part?
So institutions, including banks, investment companies, but also businesses, right? So if you're a business today and you want to invest as a business,
right,
you can do that.
Okay.
You know, and I think relatively very soon we'll be launching or have in a sense already launched the region's first wealth product, but for SMEs. You know, we're constantly caught up in SMEs need financing, need money. But ultimately they need money to grow their wealth, grow their operations. What if you are a business today and you have some surplus cash and you want to grow that cash?
Right.
Not necessarily just through the business, but invest it. And companies do this all the time. You know, a lot of them put in fixed deposits in banks, generates them 5, 6, 7% a year. But now, actually, as a business, you can invest in Mamun to finance other businesses, you know? So it's a very, very interesting product for SMEs.
And it's also interesting because for us, we see business and financial services to be one holistic ecosystem. Now, we play our role. But businesses would be more effective at assessing risk of financing a certain transaction involving two other businesses because, for example, they might have also expertise in that space.
Sure.
So to see SMEs, for us to create a way for them to collaborate even more that way, makes for a very, it really aligns with what we feel is our ethos and mission at Mamun.
And what is the minimum investment that a person can make and duration?
So our typical investments range between 3 to 7, 8, 9 months.
Okay.
This is the usual tenor. The minimum investment is 50 riyals. That's an investor.
So it's very accessible for most people.
Yeah.
How can a person's investment be withdrawn? Is there like an easy way to do so? And can they cancel at some point?
So this is how it works.
Yeah.
So you sign up, and then you have a Mamun investment wallet. You fund this wallet. You add money into it. Once the money is there, then you choose which investments to invest in. All right?
Okay.
Once you have invested, then you cannot retrieve your money back because khalas, the money has been used to buy coffee, a truck, whatever it is to finance a business.
Until the duration is complete.
But
immediately after the duration is complete?
Correct. In some cases, the investments don't just pay back at the end of the duration, but it could be through installments, right?
Okay.
So you start getting your money back before the end of the duration.
And the way I would withdraw is, how would that work? It would go from my Mamun wallet to my bank account?
Correct. You just submit a request. We process it in 2-3 days, and we send it across.
And we're looking to automate a lot of these processes with some partners in the ecosystem so that it's faster and better. I think also, in terms of milestones, I'd like to mention one that I think we started thinking a bit different and outside of the box at Mamun. One of them is we partnered with Mubashir to introduce something called Advertise Now, Pay Later.
For those who don't know Mubashir, what's that?
So Mubashir is the leading out-of-home advertising company. They have all these awesome screens at the Oman Convention Center.
Oman Oil, Shell, all these advertising screens.
Yeah, we've had the pleasure of interviewing their chief growth officer recently.
Awesome.
It's an extremely effective means of reaching customers and achieving brand awareness. And what we learned and we learned this ourselves when we wanted to use Mubashir a year ago, the cash burden of paying for their services initially can be a bit expensive and inaccessible to a lot of businesses who are also kind of in a position where in a high needs to reach more customers because I've got goods to sell. And this, for us as Mamun, is a good indicator for a business that is aggressively trying to reach customers. So we sat with the team at Mubashir, and mashallah alayhim, they're very creative folks too. And we're like, so let us provide a crowd financing product that allows businesses to be able to advertise now and pay later and break up the payments so that more businesses can have access to reaching to their customers. So this is a very exciting product. And again, it feeds into our ethos at Mamun, create credit products or investment products that are both practically useful to the business and generate a decent return to investors on the platform.
So far from what I've been hearing from you guys, this sounds like a very attractive proposition from an investor standpoint, but that makes me curious. In what scenarios would a business choose Mamun over a traditional financial institution? Like, in what cases does it make more sense to go with you guys?
It's a really good question. And in most cases, we could end up being at a premium cost to the business when it's getting financing.
That's what I was thinking.
Right? But the benefits you get from this premium is several that you can't get from a traditional lender. Right? So one is our speed in actually giving you an answer of yes, no, how much, our due diligence. I think on average right now, and a lot of this is manual and we're working at automating it, within a week or 2 weeks, you're fully funded, anywhere between 60,000 riyals. In fact, the bulk of the work happens before we list the investment opportunity in Mamun. Once we list it in Mamun, investments close either within seconds, minutes, or a couple of hours.
I noticed.
Right? Which is a huge problem, where a lot of people are quite pissed at this.
It's a good problem.
Yes, but it
was cute in the beginning.
Not anymore. So we need to bring in more worthy, interesting opportunities. So that's one. I think our speed in the due diligence process and the funding process. The second one is we do mostly unsecured, no collateral lending.
What does that mean?
So that means, your typical bank would say, you walk into a bank, you would want 20,000 riyals. They'd ask you, all right, give us land or property worth 30,000 riyals, and we'll gladly give you 20,000. And we'll hold the land as collateral, so that if you don't pay back, we can sell the land and get our money back as the bank. So we don't do that. A lot of businesses don't have collateral to offer for financing. So that's a big one. And I think the soft power of crowdfunding is, for the first time, you now have the ability to engage your customers, your audience, your ecosystem, to not just buy your product and be a fan, but to also invest in you.
Yeah.
And they can actually get to make money, you know? So it's a really nice circular benefit for the business and for its customers and its fan base.
I want to add to that. In each instance where we've had a listing in Mamun, the business owners would report to us increase in sales, engagement, interest in the business. Some of them, you know, because I think a lot of businesses out there underestimate what is the truth behind their actual ecosystem. It's not just I have a product and I sell it and I have these customers. But these customers also love you, man.
Yeah.
They believe in you.
In fact, they are your first investors.
Right.
Yeah.
And allowing them access to participate in the process of business and wealth creation perpetually creates a sustainable financial ecosystem, which is a big part of, I think, this is the practical side of Vision 2040 when it comes to sustainable finance. And that is literally what it is, a circular economy wherein the very customers are also the producers and the investors in the businesses they support and the products they love. And to really see this happen before our eyes at Mamun brings us a lot of joy, you know, because that's what this is about. So a lot of our some of the businesses that have used Mamun, and we could tell when we track the stats. I mean, did you know that 30% of the investors were actually, you know, your followers on Instagram, right? And like, oh wow, I didn't know people loved us that much. I'm like, well, yeah, they do, and you guys are doing an awesome job and keep doing it. Right?
They love you more if you bring them money.
Sure, right? So, crowdfunding has a soft power. Because, and you have to understand the nature of the kind of users platforms like us have are, you know, and individuals from across the board, you know, great guys like you. So you could discover an interesting business on Mamun and there will be an interview subject for you next week. So as a financial services provider, as a crowdfunding platform, you know, our money also comes with marketing and other elements that, you know, traditional financial institutions would not necessarily bring to the table in combination.
Yeah. So this all sounds amazing. It sounds great. And honestly, I feel very proud hearing all of this. But that leads me to the next, I think, very important part, and that's risks.
Right.
We have to be very transparent about some of the risks that are involved. However, we're going to go out on a quick break.
Sure.
Awesome. Now we're going to continue towards the risks side of it, because I think when it comes to any investment, there's always risks involved. So we have to be very transparent with that. But before we get into that, I want to know, is Mamun a registered and licensed company to practice crowdfunding? And if so, is it just in Oman or is it in other countries as well?
It is. It's licensed and regulated by the Financial Services Authority, or previously CMA. And what comes with this license is, you know, a lot of requirements. There's a lot of audits by them. There's a lot of reporting to them. So it's a very hands-on, regulated, licensed entity.
Right. You guys are operating in other countries too, right?
So we have the ability to do that. So on one hand, we can onboard investors from anywhere around the world.
Okay.
And today, most of our investors are from Oman, but we have investors in Saudi, Emirat, Bahrain, Lebanon, Jordan, the UK. And at the same time, we can finance any business around the world.
I see.
Our focus currently is to finance businesses in Oman, but there's a couple of very interesting opportunities that would be announcing soon about financing in a couple of other countries.
Where we will co-create some products, especially those that involve other startups and marketplaces in that embedded model that we mentioned.
Nice. So what are the risks associated with private investments on Mamun?
So, you know, in any investment, there's a lot of different types of risk. There's a risk that the market collapses. There's the risk of pandemics. There's the risk of, just general things. But there's also the risk of the business going under. There's a business. That's one of the key risks that we measure, consistently. We have a grading system in our platform that is A, B, C, D. A being the relatively lower risk, D being the higher risk investments. And we show this, of course, to investors. In the details of every investment, you read up about the potential risks and what grade we have assigned that investment.
Okay.
So again, D being higher risk, A being lower risk. And we assign this A, B, C, D ranking based on looking at least at 45 to 50 points of information related to a business. So we look at their audited financials, we look at their profit and loss, we look at their balance sheet, we look at the Mala'a report of the company.
What is that?
So Mala'a is an institution under Central Bank of Oman that collects everyone and every company's financial risk, banking, loans related information. So each and every one of us could download the Mala'a app, put in your ID number, and you'll get a report that says, how many bounce checks you've had, if any, how many loans you have. And based on a lot of information that they collect from different banks, financial institutions, they assign you a score. Are you high risk or are you low risk as a person or as a company?
Right.
These such institutions like Mala'a are very key to all banks, finance companies, and of course to us.
Yeah.
So we look at the Mala'a reports of the companies and the Mala'a reports of the shareholders of the companies. We also look at the industry. We look at the industry that the business operates in. Some industries are more risky than others. And if a business is involved in a transaction with another business, for example, a business received a purchase order from a client, we would also look or try to gauge the risk of that client as well, because that client will have to pay back the business that we are financing.
If I can just add, because not all buyers are made equal. Some have different payment terms when it comes to their vendors and their suppliers.
Yeah.
Some are known in the market to be horrible paymasters. Some are known to be excellent paymasters. So we look at the transaction from both sides. Who is selling, obviously, the business that is seeking financing through Mamun, and who the buyer is. And as Saleh mentioned, we look at what sectors are they operating in. Are these sectors prone to risk? Are you shipping your products through the Red Sea? There is a lot of volatility there now. So this also can impact and affect some transactions.
So there's a lot of factors that you're looking at. You mentioned earlier that one of the advantages for businesses seeking finance through Mamun is that you're a lot faster than a financial institution. So you're doing all of these, you're assessing them and vetting them on all of these criteria within the span of like a couple of weeks?
Correct. And there are two types of criteria. So there's the qualitative element, things that you can't quantify, but or have experience in, such as, is their client a good paymaster or not? Right. This is the kind of information just by being in the market, talking to people, you kind of know or have a sense of. So that's qualitative. And then there's a quantitative side, which is we look at your Mala'a score, we look at your financials, your bank statements, things like that as a business.
Yeah.
And the opportunity for us is to automate a lot of these things so that we can do this even faster. We want to reduce it from 1-2 weeks to a couple of days up to ultimately a couple of hours or a couple of minutes or seconds even.
Wow. We even go to the extent of factoring in, well, what Saleh mentioned is engineered and designed into a risk model that is quite unique to us and is constantly being iterated. I mean, the team went as far as, what is that exercise you guys did with the MSX?
Yeah, so to compare industries or to compare a borrower or a business that's looking for financing, with its peers. So let's say you are in the glass manufacturing industry. I want to know as much as possible, with whatever information I can get my hands on how do you compare versus other glass manufacturing companies.
Okay.
So we're constantly doing this exercise wherein we go to the Muscat Stock Exchange public website, where all the listed companies have to provide financial reports quarterly, annually. So we went into, for example, the industrial indice, where all the industrial companies that are listed in MSX, and we went into each and every one of financial reports for each of those companies that are listed. We broke down and retrieved the revenue, their cost, their profit, their debt levels, things like that. And we run it against our model whenever a borrower or business comes seeking financing with us, and compare it and benchmark it against MSX listed companies in the same field.
You know how hard it is to do that? That's a lot of data, dude.
I can
right?
imagine.
Yeah, trust me, you don't want to be the interns who had to do that. God, واجد متعب.
That's what interns are for.
No, but it's important, and it's not very out of the box either. I feel we follow more or less what traditional banks, traditional finance companies do.
Yeah.
And this is more of a science, less of an art.
Right.
That's been tried and tested for decades. For us, it's when we're doing in this embedded finance model, there's other sources of data that we would look at. So, for example, the restaurant and the food delivery company example. We would look at their sales, because that information is there with the food delivery companies, transparent. So we would look at their month-on-month sales. We look at any trends, Ramadan-related dips or summer-related highs in sales. Information that is not in their financial statement. It's not in the Mala'a score, but it's there with the food delivery company.
Yeah.
So we also would consider and look at that.
Another one we look at is something we call social capital, right? And when we say social capital, we also look at offline and online, right? What's the reputation of the brand or the business? How many followers they have on Instagram? How is their engagement on Instagram? Because these things indicate to us their ability to sell and market their product.
Right.
This adds a comfort layer. I remember we had a listing where I noticed that my sister-in-law was following this business, and I called her. I said, "Hey, why do you follow these guys?" She goes, "Oh, Mohammed, I love their work. I love the villas they build. Our next villa, I'll buy it from these guys." I was like, wow, that's impressive. This is a customer dreaming of making a purchase with this business in the future. And to me, as a marketeer, that is always excellent indication of a business's future.
And of course, we speak to the operators of the business. We get a gauge and a sense of their financial acumen, how much they know of the industry. Typically, we prefer to finance companies that are at least 1 to 2 years old minimum, just because they have actual data, they have experience. But, we don't necessarily say no to reviewing or having a conversation for any business at any stage.
Let's say I choose to invest in a company through Mamun, and the company was either late on payments or were unable to fulfill their financial obligations.
Right.
Are my investments protected, or how does that work?
Great question. So, securities. What kind of securities and guarantees do we get from the business? So, yes, we don't have collateral. We don't have land or some property that the business had kept with us. But we do two things. One is we take post-dated checks from the business, and then we have that financing or that investment guaranteed by the owners of the business on their personal capacity. So also we take post-dated checks, or in some instances, a sakdain or a debt note from the notary public. So this is the first level. In other instances, we also take credit Oman insurance based on a transaction. So for example, you have a business here that is selling to another business. We want to ensure that your client is going to pay you once you deliver them the goods. So in several instances, we've taken out Credit Oman insurance, and we would rely on that insurance. If the client doesn't pay our borrower or Mamun's borrower, we can rely on the insurance and recover, the bulk of the investment amount. So that's another layer.
Right. But these things can take time, and so
Correct.
there's always still, like, let's be honest, there's always still a chance where if I'm expecting a certain return at a certain date, if they default or are unable to pay on time, I would also need to wait this out until it plays out.
Correct.
Essentially.
Correct.
Right.
So that's the default process. So in the default process, obviously there is a whole plan set in place, and alhamdulillah, we didn't have to face it up to now. From the 17 investments we've made, 18 investments we've made in the past 7-8 months, 4 of them have paid back on time, and there's going to be several repayments in the coming months for investments we closed a couple of months ago. They are also, alhamdulillah, on track. But we have the contingencies and the plans for that, and that includes cashing in those checks, having a legal recourse for these checks. This includes, criminal liability, court, and the entire recovery process.
And I think it's important that when anybody, when they make an investment, that they still, even though you're doing all your due diligence, I, as an investor, should do my own due diligence. Do you have any advice on how I can assess the risk in the businesses that are seeking investment on Mamun's platform?
I think absolutely. I mean,
well, one is rely upon the information we try to make available, whether it's on our website or in the risk bands that communicate these risks. Also, investors looking to make returns need to own up and recognize that, yes, risks happen. We could finance a bunch of restaurants, and next week a new pandemic hits.
For example.
Right?
Yeah.
That's God's will. It's out of everybody's hand at that point, right? So these are the realities. But again, with no risk, there is no reward. So I think people should always invest what they are not afraid of losing, not with the intent of losing, but with the maturity that they're incrementally building their wealth through investments. Due diligence. I've had, alhamdulillah, there's quite a few investors who called me up and said, we actually called these business owners. We checked in. And Mohammed, your due diligence at Mamun is very scary, because they get to hear that story from the business owners. So a big part of that due diligence helps us mitigate risk, but that does not mean there is no risk. There's always risk. I could walk out of here and a piano can land in my head,
Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
I would second that. Yeah. And I think this applies to any type of investment anywhere around the world. Whether it's real estate, whether it's stocks, only invest in what you can afford to lose, right? We've seen in a lot of first-time investors the need for absolute 100% guarantees and surety, and that just doesn't exist in the investment world. Whatever the investment is, regardless of
and
our
if somebody's selling that to you, then you better be careful.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's probably a scheme of some
exactly
kind. Yeah.
Right? Really good point.
Yeah.
So only invest in what you can afford to lose, and like Mohammed said, risk comes with reward. So just recognize that ultimately this is a choice that you make. And again, regardless of the investment, there's always a level of risk. Even if our investments, we classify them as A, that is still risky. One should just be very aware of that.
Let's move on now to businesses. Let's say I have a business, I'm seeking financing, and based on everything I've heard in this interview so far, I'm interested. I think Mamun is the right platform for me. What is the process? How do I go about it?
So you'll initially reach out through our platform, right? It's a simple form. It comes to the team. We do an initial assessment based on the information provided.
They just go to mamun.om.
Mamun.om.
And there is a tab there that they could click on.
There's a little button that says Get Finance. Okay. Right? You click that, you fill in some very basic information that involves, how much revenue you did last year, what sector you're in, and other sort of initial information that indicates to us if we want to move to the next step. And when we move to the next step, we send them our due diligence checklist, which has 45 items in it. They need to provide all that documentation. So these include, your credit report for the business owners, for the partners. If this is a contract or a transaction between a buyer, who is the buyer? What is the repayment terms of that contract or that transaction? And all these details. Of course, your usual stuff, ID card, CR, etc., etc., etc.
Sure.
Then we move on to an interview step, wherein we meet with the business owner. This could be could be online or physical. Sometimes we would inspect premise also, right? We will look at things as Saleh sort of mentioned earlier. What is their financial acumen? We look at as I also mentioned earlier, their social media ability to sell.
Okay.
We look at all this information. And from there, we then go to what we call an advisory session. We see some instances, some businesses, they come to us and they go, I need 50,000 because I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8, right? And sometimes we give them feedback, and you could correct me, Saleh, here. Tell them, no, I think you can't necessarily afford 50, and you don't need the 50. What you need is 20. Do 1, 2, 3, and then you'll be in a position to get further financing and get 40, so you could do 6, 7, and 8.
Sure.
So this is very important. A lot of business owners, they come with this fixed mindset that there is what you want and what you actually practically need. And we are not predatory, right? We want to see these businesses succeed on our platform because their success on Mamun trickles down to success of investors who are investing in these businesses.
Right. But we also need to see Mamun succeed. So what fees or rates does Mamun charge for these services to companies?
Yeah, so on the investor side, we charge fees, and on the businesses as well. And our fee structure for businesses ranges. It's a percentage point of how much we fundraise for you as a business.
Okay.
Sometimes this might be taken upfront, but the majority of times it's taken after we have successfully fundraised for you. So we would deduct that percentage from the fundraise that we did.
Okay, so do you have any numbers?
Yeah, so this ranges anywhere between 1% to 5%, depending on the business, depending on the fundraising, etc.
So is it all? There's also fees involved, no? Or is it just percentages?
So the fees is in percentage form.
Okay.
And this is the Mamun platform fees.
Right.
The fees we charge for listing, doing the due diligence, and fundraising.
Hello.
We also have subscription tiers, right? We have a starter account
for investors,
professional account, and a premium account. And we get asked this question a lot. Why do you have these subscription tiers? The reason is it allows us to push the cost down relative to fees for both investors and to the businesses. So we encourage people subscribing to our tires, and they have a myriad of benefits, early access to certain opportunities, certain perks and exclusivity, even a difference in the fees that we charge upon investing. So with the starter account, it's 3%, and with the professional account, it's 2.5%. And then with the premium, it's 2%. And sometimes we have what we call Jum'a Mubaraka promotions, where we do some discounts on the fees. This tends to be around, we being a Sharia compliant platform, this tends to be around religious holidays or certain occasions. So it has a myriad of certain benefits. And this helps us actually reduce the cost to the businesses who leverage the platform.
Nice.
So please sign up, guys. Buy premium.
Mamun.om.
What is the repayment terms for financing for these companies?
Typically, it's 3 to 7, 9 months. We try to keep it as short term as possible.
Okay.
And more and more.
In one go, they just paid back?
So more and more we're doing it as an installment.
Okay.
Or in the first 1 or 2 months, مثلا, there's no installments, but then there's installments in month 4, 5, and 6. Some investments, yes, you pay at the end. And this is all a discussion that we have with the businesses.
And is that directly correlated to what the investors get as well?
Correct. So once a business pays back, whether it's in full or in installments, that fund is then reflected in your investor wallet.
And this information is all present when you post the investment.
Correct. We detail all of these things.
Great. We're getting to the end of the interview. As co-founders, what has been the most rewarding moment for Mamun's journey so far?
Oh, wow.
Well, there's a lot of stories. Yeah.
Well, for me, definitely the one we mentioned earlier, being the first, homegrown fintech technology company that's exported its technology outside of the borders. I think that was, it's a Tamami brothers thing to do a lot of firsts, right? So it's our thing to do that. I'm proud of that. But I had this moment during Ramadan. I was invited to this dinner, and I bumped into a colleague. And he said, Mohammed, how did you do it? I said, how did I do what? My wife, she invested in a few opportunities in Mamun and made returns. How did you get her to invest? I'm sorry, I don't know. Maybe she discovered us on Instagram and connected with a certain business that was listed and she invested. I said, Mohammed, because I've been trying to instill this culture of investing in her for years. And she just wouldn't budge. But somehow she went through the entire learning curve and the concept of, saving, investing, and going through that. And that to us is very rewarding, because instilling that culture, I think is extremely important for everyone.
Yeah.
But instilling that culture wherein the investment targets are SMEs in our economy. So today to see that people are participating holistically in the economy in this way, in such a positive way, that really, it puts a smile on my face,
I think maybe part of it is the fact that the companies that choose to finance through Mamun, you're very familiar with them. They're local companies. You probably know the CEO. You probably know the people who work there.
You probably drink coffee there.
Exactly. And it's not as abstract as investing in the S&P. That just sounds terrifying for a lot of people, I assume. Perhaps that's a factor.
I think you're right. It's closer to home. It's tangible. I am investing in a coffee shop for it to do X, for example. But to add to what Mohammed mentioned, some of my joy comes from hearing the stories of how these businesses came up. There's a lot of businesses we don't know, we've never heard of. But their successes, their grind, their hard work. And then they are eligible for financing, and then they get invested. And then hearing them again, a month, 2 months, 5 months later, hearing what that financing did for them, how they're growing, how they're increasing this or doing that. That's really rewarding to know that you were part of a business's journey, and sometimes at critical points of their journey, and you were able, not personally, but the community of investors were able to have faith in them, invest in them, believe in them.
Through the platform that you guys built.
Sure. But, ultimately, we are essentially just middlemen, It's the investors that believe in them. We do our best to bring the business and the investors together.
Right.
So that's very rewarding.
I can imagine so. And what can we look forward to in the coming months?
Awesome.
I'm not even saying years, months, because I know you have things lined up.
Right. So, first, we really have to thank the businesses that choose to work with Mamun, and absolutely thank our growing community of investors today. All of them have been absolutely supportive, and they understand that we're a young company, we're growing. We don't have an army of customer support people, and they've been patient, and you know what's even best part of this community? That they sometimes identify to us great businesses that should be listed in Mamun. They sometimes alert us of interesting opportunities. So everybody's working together in a very cohesive way. So our focus moving forward will be significantly to work on nurturing this community, through content, education, and other means. A lot of our investors have been demanding a feature that we tried to push yesterday, but we had some kinks. Essentially better tracking of the maturity dates of a lot of the investments that they have made. So this is going to make it easier for a lot of our investors to track. In fact, a year ago, we had built an algorithm. We call her AYA, which stands for Automated Investment Allocation, wherein you as an investor could automate how your wallet deploys funds and different opportunities based on certain risk appetite that you have. This should be interesting for more passive type of users or investors in Mamun. Yeah. So this is a feature that we look forward to, because we're going to leverage a lot of other AI capabilities to bring AYA to greater life and being able to do a lot more for the community as a kind of concierge or a kind of investment butler, or call it a robo-advisor for that matter. And we look forward to a lot of interesting investment instruments that we are bringing about. Maybe, Saleh, you want to talk about thematic funds, maybe?
Yeah. One thing we're very excited for this year is, so far a business would come with a financing request and we would list that one business investment financing request. This year what we're going to do is create a kind of a mini fund. For example, let's say we want to...
Mubashir is a good example.
Correct,
yeah.
Right? So the Mubashir advertise now, pay later scheme. We don't want to create a situation where if you want to buy Mubashir services, we list you as one business, one request, and then we finance you. And then, because we expect, at least dozens of businesses over the next year to buy this service from Mubashir.
Sure.
So instead of doing it on a case-to-case, one-by-one basis, what we will do is create a thematic fund, a fund with a theme that, let's call it the Mubashir Mamun Fund number 1. The purpose of this fund would be to finance SMEs that want to buy Mubashir services. That's it. This fund will not do anything else. The length of this fund will be, let's say, 1 year. So we will raise funding from investors, and then that fund will be specifically used to finance companies that want to buy Mubashir services at a certain criteria, which will be clear and transparent to the fund investors. So it's 1 year.
So who takes on the risk in that situation? Is it Mubashir? Are they the ones doing the vetting, or are you guys doing?
We would do the vetting.
Okay.
Essentially, they will just bring them to us if they're seeking financing. So the fund will be 1 year, and the purpose of this fund is very direct, very, very specific. Profits of this financing activity will be shared, let's say, on a quarterly or semi-annually basis. And then at the end of the year, we will close that fund. The principal, whatever profits, will then be returned to the investors.
Okay.
This gives us the ability to then do diligence, review, and fund businesses that want to buy Mubashir advertisements.
Right.
All right. As opposed to doing it on a case-to-case basis.
It's interesting.
This allows us to do this faster, at more scale. So that's very exciting.
Another one is when business comes to Mamun.om and they sign up or make a financing request. We want this to be significantly automated to a decent extent, in such a way that we want to be able to tell you yes and no extremely quickly, because we understand to these businesses time is money. They want to get an indication if they pass our screening and our
which is a big reason why they're even choosing you in the first place, isn't it?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So we want them to go through a process wherein immediately Mamun can tell them, yes, you are moving to the next step, or no, you don't qualify because of 1, 2, 3, 4, right? or no, you did a mistake in the form, or something like that. So we want that. We want to be yes and no extremely fast, because we know people's time is valuable, and then sort of have that more automated without compromising risk analysis, right? And we're going to introduce the Mamun business accounts. The Mamun business accounts will be for businesses who are seeking finance through the platform, and will be for businesses who also want to invest from their surplus cash. And with it, we also hope to introduce some very useful tools and services to the SME ecosystem.
That's fantastic, you guys. Anything you would like to add before we end today's interview?
I would, as Mohammed said, thank our community. They've been very patient. They've been fantastic, both businesses and investors. Yeah. I think, we were inspired to do this because we lived it as entrepreneurs for the past 15, 17 years. Yeah. We recognize as a problem. I love what we do. We're super excited for the future. It's looking very, very bright, inshallah. Also thanks and kudos to our team, everyone in the company. They've also been extremely patient, super hardworking. This is not just a two-man show. It's actually 11 of us in the business. I just look forward for the future and growing.
And if I can just add here, I think it's very important to thank His Majesty Sultan Haytham. He has been really putting down positive fiscal policies in our economy. This is the direct result of the 2040 vision, which has an alternative finance pillar, which led to the creation of the Sustainable Finance Committee, which is again is the shepherd of alternative finance in Oman, in collaboration with the Financial Services Authority as a regulator. And all these bodies have been extremely efficient in making this happen. And really, we got to give these guys some credit. Hey, guys, you're doing a good job. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Including SME Development Authority. Where today we're incubated. That's where our offices are.
Okay.
So we're very optimistic, and like Mohammed said.
Yeah.
Through the leadership of His Majesty and everyone working together to...
It's becoming clear that there is a cohesion that's happening. Riyadh quickly was like, hey, so you're in the business of financing SMEs?
Yeah.
I want you guys to move in this building tomorrow. And we did. We moved in.
Yeah.
Her Excellency was just bringing us closer to, the ecosystem and the businesses that we support and love.
We only exist because there's a need in the market for what we do, but also because it's an encouraging environment, politically, regulatorily, for us to do what we do. So, for that, we're very grateful.
That's fantastic, you guys. Congratulations on all that you've achieved. I'm going to say this because they say it in every financial video I ever watched. None of this is financial advice. Please do your own due diligence. But Mohammed Al-Tamami, Saleh Al-Tamami, aka the Tamami brothers, co-founders of Mamun, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. The website is mamun.om. That's mamun.om. Thank you.
Thank you for